Hey, it's Regina from Eat Travel Life. Today we are making apple nachos, and this is in a collaboration with several collaborators making nachos for November. I want to thank Jim from Jim's Kitchen, and you can follow everybody. There'll be a link in the description or in the comments on all the different recipes that you'll want to check out. So let's go ahead and get started. Start out by putting a stick or a half a cup of butter in a pan, and let's get that melting. And then once it started to melt, we'll go ahead and add in our cinnamon. I'm melting some butter here, and to that I am going to add in some cinnamon. This is where it's important to use your glasses. I used a tablespoon instead of a half tablespoon, so the correct ingredients will be in the description below. You're going to notice that this is a little darker than expected. And let's go ahead and get that stirring and get kind of blended up. We don't want the cinnamon to burn, but we want it to get nice and flavorful in there. And I'm going to turn the heat down to low while this is melting. I'm going to be working on right next to it, keeping an eye on it. And once it's all melted, I'm going to make sure it's on low, or I might end up turning it off if it starts to bubble. So let's go ahead and work on our apples. So I have got about 7-ish apples here. They are maybe baseball size. And I'm going to peel them. You don't have to peel them if you don't want to. I just prefer not to eat the skins. And if you've ever had like an apple crisp, we are going to cube these apples up. So let me go ahead and peel this, and then we'll take next steps. Let's go ahead and cut the apples. I like to cut them off of the core versus dealing with the core. It just makes it easier to be able to cut. And I don't have to worry about cutting it in quarters or off the core or getting any of that core in there. I've already eliminated that. Let's go ahead and add this apple into the rest of our mix here. And we are going to want to stir that in and really get these all coated with that butter and cinnamon. And then the apples will need to cook for about 10 minutes because we want them to soften, and then we'll add in the sugar. It's covering all of the apples with the cinnamon butter. Looks so delicious. You smell that? That smells good. So I really like making nachos, and I've got these cinnamon tortilla chips that I make. And we're going to add those to our nachos, as well as a little bit of caramel sauce too. So seems fall-y, doesn't it? Fallish. Perfect. I am going to let these sit, and I'll check on them and turn them every few minutes. They are bubbling and getting soft. We're getting a little bit of sauciness going on, a little bit of syrupy, which is great. They just still need to cook a little bit longer. All right, the apples are just about ready, and I should tell you what kind of apples we used. These are Fuji. Did I say Fiji? It's a Fuji apple that we're using. You can use any type of baking apple that you like. These have softened up a little bit, but they're not necessarily turning to mush, and that's what I'm looking for here. So let's go ahead and add in our brown sugar, and we're going to want to mix this in and get all the sugars dissolved in here. You can use a light brown sugar or a dark brown sugar, whichever one you have on hand and prefer. You want to mix this together, and it's going to get a little bit liquidy, but we're going to want to bring it to a boil to reduce that down. Otherwise, it's going to be a little sloppy and not as caramely as we're looking for. I'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. But let's go ahead and just keep stirring and monitoring this. You really see how it's darkened up. This is the point that you're going to need to let it come to a boil and reduce down, so that, because the apples are going to release their juices as well, and you want this to not be a lot of sauce in this. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite apple dish. Is it pie, cake, muffins? I love all things apple. You can see that there's still a lot of sauce here that needs to be reduced down, so we're going to go ahead and do that and try to get it so we only just see apples and not so much sauce. This is perfect. There is just a slight crunch to the apples. It's been about 6 minutes that this has been boiling. I am going to remove it from the heat, and I'm going to let this cool, because you're not going to want to make nachos with such hot boiling apples. You will not be able to eat it. This is more of a chilled dish. This is perfect, so we're going to let this cool, and then we'll be able to start assembling. This is how I make these cinnamon sugar tortillas. I start out with flour tortillas. I preheat the oven to 350 degrees, and the tortillas need to be covered in butter spray and then cut apart and then sprinkled with cinnamon and sugar. It's a little chaotic to figure out how to do this best. I did cut them in half because I thought it would be easier, but if you just left them whole and then sprayed them all both sides, it will be just fine. And then you take the pizza cutter and cut them into wedges. Now, these are, I think, a medium-sized tortilla. You can use small ones, but you do not have to cut them into specific wedges if you don't want to, into triangles. They do not have to be several different sizes. They can be whatever shape. That's not a problem. You want them to be. You just want to make sure that they are coated on both sides, and then cut into bite-sized shapes. They don't have to be huge. They take about 10 minutes to cook in the oven. But once you've got them all cut up, you can then take them and douse them, sprinkle the cinnamon sugar all over them. I found using some type of a pan, I used a cake pan, and then I took my mix of cinnamon sugar and sprinkled it on top of them and twirled them around a little bit, mixed them around, trying to make sure that all sides are coated, and then put them on a baking sheet with parchment paper. And I just repeated this until all of them were covered and on like as many edges as you can get, because you want to really get that delicious cinnamon sugar taste with your nachos. So just do that, and then you'll be set to bake them, like I said, for 10 minutes. All right, everything's cooled. Let's go ahead and add some chips. We can go ahead and add some of the apples. Don't forget your scoop of ice cream. This really makes a difference. And then top it off with some more apples. And don't forget that caramel drizzle. It's just perfect. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. What your favorite nacho is. Have a great day.